James Drive. With the new ANZ, the bank that gives you more.
NewstalkZB, it is now 5:26. The Post-Primary Teachers Association has vowed to fight charter schools even after they have opened. 5 schools have been approved by the government and are scheduled to open in February next year. The PPTA says they're going to isolate the schools and not support the teaching staff. To tell us more what's planned, PPTA Junior Vice President Hazel McIntosh is with me, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Why is the PPTA so vehemently against these partnership schools, charter schools?
We call them charter schools because we don't think changing their name is going to improve them. Charter schools, they're just appalling, and the evidence of just how destructive they are for our public education system is quite overwhelming. It simply beggars belief that we're introducing them here in the face of all of the evidence of the damage they've done to vulnerable students in communities overseas.
Like what? You say damage to vulnerable students, communities overseas, like what?
The students most likely to be thrown out of charter schools are just the students that they purport to be supporting. It's far more likely to be in America the very poorest of the black Afro-American communities or the Hispanics, and it will be exactly the same here. It will be those students that actually cost money to keep in your school and don't actually improve your image or your ranking that will be the first out the door.
Well, look, I suppose you can pick. You can pick out the duds from offshore, but what about the success stories?
There aren't any success stories.
Why do you say that?
Because it's true. Because in fact, the charter schools overseas do worse than the public schools actually do.
I have in front of me a study by Stanford University Centre for Research on Educational Outcomes.
Yes.
Do you know it?
I do not.
Well, hold on.
You
just told me this is all rubbish, all this research.
There's a great deal of research that shows that those schools that have success as charter schools are actually because they're selecting their students. They're making sure that they succeed, just as the schools here are doomed to succeed.
According to this research from Stanford University, students in poverty, black students and those learning English gain most in both reading and maths compared to their traditional public school peers. Are you saying that's rubbish?
I'm saying I haven't seen the study, and I bet there will be a number of studies that will look quite different from that evidence that has actually been presented to us here in New Zealand.
No. You are cherry-picking stuff, aren't you?
No, I think you're cherry-picking. You've just cherry-picked one study.
Hold on.
Which I haven't seen, and you're ignoring the rest.
Do you want me to tell you about Washington, D.C., about that study?
I'd like to see them, yes, and I'm sure that we could have plenty of...
But you see, you're just rubbishing all these studies. What about New Orleans? What about Washington, D.C.?
New Orleans has been a disaster as a result of charter schools.
Really?
And we have actually academics here in New Zealand who have looked at what's happened in America and have looked at how damaging it's been for their communities, and who said, we don't need it here, and we don't need it.
You refer to...
We have a huge range of schools here, and we do extremely well. And if you look at results like PISA, we do exceptionally well. And this is not to say that we couldn't do better. Of course we could do better.
Hold on, 20% fail in our education system. Why not give...
We could certainly do better. And the 19 million that's being taken out of our public...
Why not give these lower socioeconomic... With respect, why not give these lower socioeconomic Maori and Pacifica students who aren't achieving it at the hands of your fully qualified teacher... Why
don't we give the 19 million that's being taken from the public education system into the schools where we could support those students more effectively? There are lots of other things that we can do apart from blame schools for what's happening with these students. Why aren't we addressing some of the poverty that these students live in, some of the issues that they have to deal with, like drug abuse? Right? Why are we actually blaming the schools? Why aren't we supporting the schools to do better for these students? We can, we know that, and we have been doing that.
Don't you think you're further isolating vulnerable students, parents? You're treating them like lepers. Why don't you leave? You just want to leave them where they are. You don't want to put them into another. Give them a chance.
Leave them where they are.
Well, that's what you're proposing.
We're proposing to help these students to the best of our ability.
Well, so are these...
suggesting that if we were resourced better, we could actually do that.
Well, these not-for-profit schools, they're proposing to do that as well.
I beg your pardon? Not-for-profit schools. Charter schools will be for profit.
Really?
That's the whole point of them. They will take public money, public taxpayers' money, all right, for private businesses. They are for profit. They will make a profit.
Can I ask you
Otherwise
this?
they will close.
Can I ask you this?
What happens to those vulnerable students then? They're thrown back into the public system.
You're talking about them having untrained teachers.
Unqualified teachers.
Unqualified teachers.
Unqualified teachers.
That's not what it says in their brief.
No, in their brief they're talking about having some qualified teachers.
They're
talking about having possibly an English, maths and science teacher.
No.
You want to read into the small print there.
Well, they use outside expertise in engineering and carving and those sorts of things.
We do that already.
And
we have opportunities to do that in our public schools now.
Exactly. Schools do that now. They're using outside resources.
We have opportunities to do that. The trades academies that have been opening all over the country are doing exactly that.
All right. Well, finally, I've read your press release today. What's with the threatening bullying behaviour, telling schools to ostracise charter schools?
We consider that this is the most serious threat to our public education system that there is. And we're going to do everything we can to actually defend our public education system against this attack. And that means that we will not be giving our time to support people who are not actually part of our public education system.
Thank you for coming on the program. I do appreciate it. That is Hazel McIntosh, PPTA Junior Vice President. More on this in just a moment. It's 28 to 6.